So here's an interesting thing on kind of consciousness and robots and such. So here, I wrote this up. I posted it to my Gab and Twitter if you want to read it. Otherwise, I'll read it myself. So, hypothesis of the soul. I believe that it is a chaos matrix or engine. Now, matrix essentially means something from which other things come from. So, like a soil. Similar to a quantum random number generator. The brain and nerves control all of the functions of the body in an electrochemical way. So from this master controller, the body is manipulated. But from the earthly world can also come electromagnetic energy which feeds or allows this soul to exist. A body eats food to fuel the brain. From pure chaos, the state that children are born into, comes rigidity, stagnation, as the body and neural pathways develop and the chaos forms more into order. This, on a practical standpoint, means that people go from being conscious and chaotic to being more unconscious or routine, stable. Pure chaos is not usable, especially in society, so it's more functional to give some boundaries to this chaos and structure it more in a proper way. So to give machine souls in this idea, you would build a randomizer. Either mechanical randomizers, a device that randomly selects an angle could be used, or a random number generator on a computer. In a game, for example, randomness is used for the NPC's movement patterns, chat decisions, or any choice which needs to be made. You can refine this randomness by giving the NPC likes and dislikes so that the NPC will usually move towards the east instead of the west, or speak about cats instead of dogs. This is the beginning of personality. From mind comes personality, and the body is the physical form or structure which grounds this. The body relies on XYZ plane movement and movement patterns, as well as pressure modulation, which is fairly easy to program. Though you do need to program a lot of routines like walking, running, sitting, etc. So let's break this down and really understand what I'm trying to say. Firstly, the idea that the soul, and I mean like the root of the soul to an extent, I think at least the root instead of the head. The root of the soul is a chaos matrix or engine, meaning that you need chaos to essentially, like, it's like what the soul's functions come from is chaos. It's like what the body's functions come from is stability. The reason why is that the mind is like a system that can think up anything and virtualize anything. It's similar to those imagination AI picture generators, or like a chatbot generator. It just generates words and phrases and it's based on other things, of course, and pictures and eventually music. We'll probably already have music generation and all that stuff. You need to fuel this with like a kind of chaos or a kind of force or pressure. To create anything, you need, again, it's chaos. It's to understand the planar, the front, back, left, right, the X angles, the up, down, all the colors. If you want to make any object, you need to understand how objects are made. You need to understand color, you need to understand form. The ability to create any object comes from chaos. It comes from, and by chaos I mean absolute, like, infinity, randomness, anythingness, like clay or like sand, which can be formed into anything. It's a bit like to form a shape. You need the clay, and you need the sand or the clay, and the raw material almost. Like chaos is the raw material of the soul, so to speak. From this, here we have the brain and the nerves controls all the functions of the body. Okay, so it's a master controller. The brain is the master controller. You are I mean, you are all, you're your body, but you're also the brain. You're controlling the brain, the you, which is like a pilot light. It's like a conscious observer, right? You are like this energy, like this little orb of energy, which can do anything in that energy form. In the body, you can only do so much. You probably don't have 3 arms, but you can imagine you have 3 arms, which is where the chaos comes from. You can conceptualize anything. You move your hand in any direction, so to speak. So your nervous system is the controller, and the consciousness is within the higher nervous system, aka the brain. And then I basically say, food, which is earthly, fuels the mind. The earth fuels the mind. The mind controls the earth, or the body. Children are born into chaos. They're born into a chaotic state. When you're young, you're kind of on like a 24/7 LSD trip because of the state of consciousness you are in, which is a very chaotic state. People who are childlike are always in that chaotic state. And as you develop, you kind of need to become a bit more stable and rigid and less chaotic. So what happens is that, you form, from the chaos comes the order. You form the neural pathways which you want to use, which you're kind of familiar with. And of course, being stuck in those sometimes isn't the best. You have to be a little bit careful. So we're talking about machines. You need a randomizer in a machine. This is like an engine. It's a chaos engine. You need a motor, or a chaos motor. You need a motor to move something, to move a wheel. You need a motor. You need a motor, a consciousness motor, to create the consciousness. The robot, or the computer, the AI, has this randomizer, which if it needs something to make it do something, or else it'll only be input output. If you input hello, it'll input hello back. If it has a randomizer, the chaos motor, it will maybe input how are you, or goodbye, or something. NPCs in a video game, they use randomness to decide how they will move, unless they're more path seeking and they have the same path. Sometimes they will have randomness. Sometimes they'll have random phrases that they'll say. This could be the start of personality. From the randomness comes more order. Your personality is something you've essentially refined and constricted the randomness to more so be specific patterns and pathways. You like specific things. You talk in a specific way, use specific words. This is personality. It is a capturing that, it's like the child will like certain colors and certain things. Maybe they'll change from like traumatic events or personal changing and discovery and all that kind of stuff, but they usually will have certain dislikes and likes once they get to like maybe 7 to 10 or so. So from the mind and the consciousness comes the personality, and within that is within the body. The body grounds and holds like a cup holding water, the personality and the mind. And then finally, the body uses XYZ plane movements. X is left and right, Y is up and down, I believe, and Z is forward and backwards. This is the movement patterns. Look up XYZ if you need more description. It's how you put it into maths, so to speak. So if you're programming a robot, when it's moving its hands, it's moving it in an XYZ plane. Of course, the elbow and the knee joints are a little different. They only move in a specific plane. They don't really move left and right. So you're programming all of these things. And again, what is the driver? Why is it moving? You can program in routines like walking or running or sitting or jumping or dancing or whatever you want. Washing the dishes, if it's like an assistant robot, or maybe some kind of like caring for a person, so like hugging the person or something. Maybe you think like an elderly care or like a child care robot, for example. It needs these kinds of things to simulate love and care and emotion and such. So the driver could be a routine. That's very patterned, very simplified. You could also have the mind, which again, within the mind is the consciousness, which is, in this, at least I think in this case, is the chaos drive, the chaos matrix, or the randomness matrix. From that comes personality. Maybe the robot likes to hug. Maybe it likes to walk a lot. Maybe it's, it's kind of anxious and moves around all the time. The personality influences the movements, and then it moves in this XYZ way. Of course, there's pressure modulation, tension and relaxation, like how strongly you do things. That's another variable. Of course, it depends on the electronics. It depends on what kind they've got, because you can only modulate what you've got. If you don't have a third arm, you can't modulate a third arm. I mean, you can, again, in your imagination or in the robot's programming, which is kind of like the imagination of the nervous system of it, but whatever. So, from this, you can gauge that hypothetically we could create conscious analog robots, meaning like out of wood and metal and all that. And you could also create conscious digital robots out of computers and metal and plastics and whatever. And I guess it gives a whole lot of meaning to things like a Ouija board or a spinner or divination. There's a lot you can think about relating to that. Summoning spirits, using randomness to contact them, a system of contact and such. There's a lot you can think about with that. Anyway, I hope you got something out of that. I thought this was very fascinating, and I think we can use this hypothesis to make cool stuff, cool AI, miniature robots and such. You can make little analog robots if you figure out a way to make random, like a random number generator, a random positional generator out of wood and metal and whatever you find, rocks and such. So anyway, of course, check the links in the description for social and commercial things, and have a nice day.